Hello and welcome to the Everyday Adventure podcast. My name is Nikki Bass and I will be bringing you thoughts and ideas and hopefully some inspiration on how to build more adventure into your everyday life. So it's an absolute pleasure today to welcome Catherine Edsell to the show. Catherine is an adventure and expedition leader, a PADI Divemaster, a Reef Check Trainer, a yoga teacher, and the mother of two. And she has been working in the expedition arena for over 20 years. And about 3 years ago, she set up a company called Cathadventure, which is focused on providing her own expeditions, particularly for women, and helping them to step into the wild, to reclaim some of that, either the adventurous part of their youth that they've sort of mislaid along the years, or to sort of discover a part of themselves that maybe they didn't know exist, and to help them sort of step out their comfort zones and discover that resilience. She started off with Matriarch Adventure, and that's when I first heard of her. And it just, when I heard of what she was doing, which was going into the Namibian desert and tracking elephants for 10 days with a group of women, I just thought it sounded absolutely incredible. And I immediately wanted to know more. And then I had the real pleasure of meeting Catherine, I think it was last year, at one of the Heroines Journey events, which was run by Kim Willis, who I spoke to, I think it was for episode 3 of the podcast. And every time I hear Catherine speak, whether it was then or since on some of the Heroines Journey online events, whether it's running meditations, reading poetry, whether it is talking about her expeditions, I'm always just blown away by two things, really. I think one is what she's trying to do in terms of expand women's horizons, in terms of mothers' horizons, feeling that they can reclaim some of that adventurous territory for themselves. But also she has this amazing grounding and calming presence. And that's something that flows through all of the work that I've seen her deliver so far. So Catherine, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you for joining me. I suppose the first question has got to be, what inspired you to set up Cathadventure and the Matriarch Adventures? Where did the idea come from?
So it was really, it wasn't an idea for a company. You know, It certainly wasn't thinking, oh, how can I organize this? It was really a personal recognition of a need for women, especially mums. It started off actually just as mums, but then as different women came forward, it changed slightly. But to actually reclaim that part of themselves that gets lost when you're just looking after other people all the time and you're working hard and you've got kids and your daily life just takes over, and you realize that you don't actually give priority to carving out any time for yourself. And because I have been an expedition leader, before I had kids, and I love that way of life, and I love that real immersion into wilderness and, being completely off the beaten track with no phones, nothing to attack you as it sometimes feels like. I just fought quite hard for myself to get back into that world, because initially when I had kids it seemed absolutely impossible, but I never really say never. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to see if I can make this happen, see if I can make this a reality for myself. And when I managed to do it for myself and get back into my old life as it was, leading expeditions and going to remote places, and noticed that other women were saying, oh God, that you're doing really cool stuff, why can't I do that? And then I suddenly thought, why don't I just bring you guys, why don't we go together, why don't we have an adventure together? So that was where the idea came from. And then I realized that not everyone can just drop everything and go out. So I thought, well, how am I going to make this accessible? How am I going to encourage people who think it's a great idea, but then actually the reality of life comes in and it suddenly feels quite overwhelming? How is that going to happen for them? So I literally wrote a letter to all my female friends and just said, this is my idea: 10 days, 10 women in the Namibian wilderness tracking desert elephants. Because the idea of desert elephants to me was really symbolic, because they are matriarchs. So that's where the whole thing tied up together. They were the matriarchal community that I thought, well, where are we in that? We've lost a little bit of our sort of matriarch community, that around the world other women still live in that really close-knit female-led society, and I felt that we'd lost a little bit of that. So these were all little things that came together just as ideas, and made it happen. And because I had a connection with Elephant Human Relations Aid over in Namibia, a really old connection, but it just seemed like a really good place to start. So I contacted them, and that's actually the director's a woman. She thought that was an amazing idea, so I said, yeah, bring them on. So yeah, it kind of just happened.
That's incredible. I love the analogy you use of being in the UK and things attacking you like mobile phones and modern life.
Yeah.
And in a way, I would imagine that probably for some of the people who sign up to your trips, probably they're more worried about things attacking them when they go out into the wilderness, and that's what stops them, that sort of fear.
Yeah, and it's funny actually. And I say to people, I'm more scared of driving around the M25 than I am of going off into the wilderness, because the wilderness isn't there to attack you. No, it's an unknown perhaps, but it's a system which operates very peacefully, and a motorway, the M25, is much more dangerous as far as I'm concerned.
That's really interesting. And that's probably a really important part of what you're doing, I would imagine, that actually, because you have that perspective, that people who come to you potentially with some of those anxieties, you take the opposite perspective of actually that there are far more frightening things in day-to-day life. We just don't see them that way. Is that something that you find helpful with the clients?
Yeah, I mean, it has to come from a spark. So people will contact me because they, like you, sort of think, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And you can kind of at that point picture yourself in that environment. And it's only when you start to think about it too much that all these negatives come in, and all things, oh, I can't possibly do that, and what about this? And then it becomes like a big, you've already created those barriers. So I have to then talk to the women who come forward and say, okay, let's sort of have a look at what you're now scared of, and let's see if we can get over that. And let me tell you that it's not that bad, and it's not that scary, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is how I'm going to be here for you to support you in this. And I don't tell them what's going to happen. That's another part of the thing. It's a little bit of a mystery. And I think, again, we can plan everything. You can go on Google, you can choose your hotel, you can see what the toilet looks like, you can walk out and see the view already before you've even been there, and then you have that expectation. So part of this as well is not creating visual expectations of what it's going to be like. I mean, it's changed slightly over time because my website has become a bit more developed and there's a few more pictures on there, but right at the beginning I was like, no, I'm not going to tell you what the itinerary. And actually that's true, because it's dominated by the fact that we're actually tracking desert elephants. So I don't know where they're going to go. So I can't actually say we're going to do this on this day and that on that day, because it very much depends. And that's what makes an expedition as opposed to a tour or a holiday. And also getting across to people that it isn't a tour or a holiday. And if you want to go on a tour or a holiday, then this probably isn't for you. But if you want to have an adventure, then I'm all up for that.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because I think part of what's so powerful about going on an adventure, and why it's such a, I suppose, a useful tool in everyday life, is that it doesn't necessarily accustom you, but it helps you to learn how to manage with uncertainty and with that not knowing. I guess it's that taking yourself out of the comfort zone and just not knowing what to expect. And I love the fact that you've actually made that an integral part of what you do. Actually, this is stepping into the unknown. And in a way, part of you signing up to this is handing that bit over and going, you know what, all the planning that I do in my day-to-day life as a parent, or, as someone who works in a busy job, all the rest of it, I'm handing that over, and I'm stepping into something that I can't control and that I don't know. And trusting you, I suppose, as the leader to be able to have that contained for them.
There is a lot of trust, actually. And I think, I suppose this is one of the challenges that comes along with it, is that people, you don't know me. I come across as a nice person, but ultimately you have to just say, I'm gonna trust you. I see your resume, I see what you've done, and you've been on these places, you've taken your kids. So I kind of come across as someone who is trustworthy, I hope. But ultimately, it's at that situation where you are all sitting around the table going through the risk assessments together, and I'm saying, it's as much your responsibility as it is mine. I'm ultimately holding this group, but everyone has to take responsibility within that to be safe, to look out for each other, to work as a team. And a team doesn't mean that everyone has to do things they don't want to do, and I need people to chop and carry, and it's not like that. It's more that being aware of everyone's strengths and also everyone's weaknesses. Some people actually need a bit more space, so maybe they don't jump to clear the table, or they don't jump to pack the bags on top of the truck, and that's okay. But that person will probably be more happy around lunchtime to just like help sort that out. So my role is really just managing that team dynamic, and hopefully within that cultivating that trust that people know that I'm okay with whatever goes on, and there's no right or wrong within that. So people don't have to feel like, oh God, I should be doing more. It's really not about that. It's actually just being there, but fully present and fully engaged. And if there's a problem, just talk about it, because you can't, in that sort of situation, any sort of expedition life is very intense. So any sort of intense social situation, it has to be an open, trusting environment that people can say, actually, I don't feel happy right now based on X, Y, Z. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, let's talk about it and let's try and resolve that. And people come with stuff. This is a big adventure. So it may be that something quite big's happened in their life and this is a treat for themselves. Or there's lots of examples of women have gone through trauma, or have had just difficult times, and this is like, actually I want to do something for myself. So that's going to be there in the background. And I'm not a counselor, but I've spent enough time working with people to know how to support those sorts of situations.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Sorry, that was my watch, helpfully telling me to stand up. Yes, so I suppose to lead on from that then, because you've talked about some of the challenges that in a way that people come with and that you're having to manage constantly. Have there been any really big challenges that you faced either on the expedition or just in terms of, I guess, getting the adventures up and running? Something that you've kept
apart from this pandemic.
Apart from the lockdown and the pandemic. That would feature quite high.
No is the answer. It's all been really easy. It's just flowed really well, and I think I've got an amazing team in Namibia, and I've done the Matriarch adventure and also a mother and daughter adventure out in Namibia. I was planning a Mongolian horseback adventure, again had a really good contact out there. The Golden Orb adventure, which was all female in Borneo, had really good contacts out there. I was supposed to do a recce this year, but so the pandemic has actually just stopped everything, and we postponed everything until next year because it's not worth not doing it. It's too uncertain. Although it's very good to be with uncertainty, there's some things you just can't manage in this climate. So that's the only big challenge actually.
And that's really, I wonder partly, when you were speaking before and you were saying actually all the work and the thought and the energy that went into sort of setting it up and where the idea came from and speaking to friends and all of that side of things, whether that meant that when you actually did start, when you did launch, as it were, you'd had a chance to think through so much of that stuff. And like you said, you had so much experience of expeditions previously.
Yeah, every time's different, and there's always different elements, whether it's people dynamics or whether it's location or weather or whatever it is. There's always different things which you have to deal with, but that's kind of part of it. And it wouldn't be fun if it was predictable, because it would all become very boring and I'd probably have to go and do something else.
It wouldn't be an adventure.
No.
So on the flip side of that then, and I ask everybody this because I find it really interesting myself whenever I start something new, that I start off maybe with a preconceived idea of what I'm going to get out of it or what I'm going to learn or how things are going to develop. And actually, as they develop, you find there's a whole load of things, whether they're benefits or whether they are things that you didn't expect that happen, and you go, wow, I didn't expect that, but that's incredible. I never realized that was something that either I was looking for or that could happen. And I just wondered for you whether there's anything that's come out of it that's been unexpected and positive in that way.
On one side, the whole relationship with ERA, with Elephant Human Relationship, has been amazing. And even though I had that connection from a long time ago, to rekindle that and to have, now I'm an ambassador, they're setting up a charity in the UK and I'm going to be a trustee for their charity. To have that sort of intimate involvement with an organisation who are doing amazing work and that I'm really fascinated by, and I love getting to know the elephants. I love the way the trackers teach us how they track, and all of that insight, which I had sort of thought about, but hadn't really thought about it, because it was like, well, it wasn't about the elephants, it was more about the women. And as it's gone on, it's become much more about everything, and the relationship that we have with the earth, and how conservation, I mean, I've worked in conservation in all expeditions I've done. I think now it's becoming really obvious how critical that is, to be there in that relationship with the land and with the animals that inhabit it. And I think, you know, it's really made me think at the moment about traveling, obviously, because, you know, we've all stopped traveling and we've looked around, there's no planes in the sky, and it's amazing. And it's made me really think about the importance of certain types of travel. And I think citizen science, which is what this is, and ecotourism is actually still really important. And I think travel done well and with a sensitivity and an understanding of why you're doing it on purely on a conservation level, yeah, it's very important. And there isn't really an alternative, especially for the funding streams that this conservation organisation now don't have, because we're not going, you know, and they're really struggling because of that. So yeah, the relationship with them has been a great benefit and a reward. And also meeting some really incredible women. And again, because it started off as sort of like a friends project. It was like, okay, I know you, you know me. And I think on the first trip I knew 4 people really well who came on it, and then the rest I didn't know. And some people I have no idea how they found it. It's just coming out of the ether. There's people coming from all over the world, and that was really interesting, because I hadn't really thought about it like that. And again, initially I didn't think about it as for people who weren't mothers. I just thought I was kind of just in my own little bubble of what I did and what was important to me, and this was my story. And then I realized that everybody had their own story. And you talked about Kim earlier. You know, I remember because I did give this talk for Heron's Journey, and she said, I'm coming. And then she said, oh, you know, I'm not a mum, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, absolutely okay. And I think it's really nice to have that mix of ages. You know, I've had from age 35 to 72. Oh, wow. You know, in the same expedition. So there's, you know, you've got all that breadth. It's almost like the matriarchal herd. You know, you have that whole breadth of age and experience and wisdom, and you know, and different experiences. And some are quite fit and done a lot of extreme sports, and this to them is, it's not that it's not challenging, it's just challenging in different ways. Whereas some people, you know, there was one woman who hadn't even ever camped in her whole life. Actually, a few women haven't even camped in their whole life. And one woman never worn flat shoes, you know, since she was like a child. So that was, you know, just saying, oh, you've got to get some walking boots. Let's go for a walk together, because this is going to feel a bit different. And like meeting these amazing women who have really conquered something, I suppose, and really used it as a springboard to move forward into different experiences and trying new experiences. And some, you know, have just gone, yeah, that was amazing, I don't need to do that again, thank you. And I'm so happy, that was a trip of a lifetime. And others like, okay, what's next? What's next? I want to do more. Yeah, that was I hadn't thought it through at that stage. And because when I had this initial idea, it was literally an idea. And then I gave the TED talk. And I hadn't even thought at that point that people might try and contact me to come on the expedition after I'd given a TED talk. Because I just wasn't thinking about it like that. It was purely just a passion project. And it was only when it sort of gained momentum, I was like, oh, well, this is kind of interesting. And that's when I thought about making it a company. But, you know, that was very far down the line. It wasn't the initial impetus at all. So, yeah.
Wow. So it has been quite a journey in a way, in terms of where you had the initial idea and then how it's evolved from that. And in a way, like you said, that even the idea of the matriarch taking on a whole new meaning as a result of the people that have then come on the adventure. So in a way, they're part of the journey of it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating. So what's next? I mean, I know we've talked about lockdown being a bit of a pain, but once we are able to get out and travel more freely, what are your plans? You've got the same adventures coming up. Is there anything new that's come out?
Yeah, so I'm doing a bit more collaborative work, because what I realized is that there's other groups out there who, you know, big groups of women, especially sort of Facebook groups of women, that actually, I'm not a marketer, I don't at all. I barely go on Facebook, and I'm just not very good at that kind of thing. And it's not that's not wrong. I'm not good. I'm just not that interested in it. So then I thought, well, there's all these sort of ready groups of people who are really interested, and people were contacting me saying, well, I'd really like, can I run a trip with you? I thought, okay. So I'm collaborating. Sometimes it's with other people actually coming with me. Sometimes it's just sort of opening up to their group and inviting it. So it's sort of more of an exclusive thing. Also bringing new elements into it. So I had an idea that I'd like to bring in sort of a singing element into one of them. I really like singing, and in Namibia there's a really strong sort of singing culture, and sometimes it's happened organically that there'll be groups that really love singing, so we do a lot of singing. But to make it sort of a bit more formal, that would be a really nice idea. Maybe a movement thing, because I do yoga and meditation during the expedition anyway, but again, sort of enhance a little bit more with somebody else coming with some sort of more movement skills, so really grounding, earth-based stuff. So just looking at ways to play with it. Sometimes, like I said, it happens naturally depending on who's actually on the expedition, but sometimes a bit more formally bringing in something a bit different. And also, I want to write a book, so you've sort of been inspired by lots of lockdown people saying, "Oh, read a book." And I thought, well, I haven't written a book yet,
no,
but and I haven't
probably
really
doing a lot of other things.
Yeah, but being disciplined. I mean, I've written chapters for books, and I really like writing.
Yeah,
and it's something that's very easy to me. I don't know what this book will look like. I haven't really, again, thought it through, but I'd like to just give some time to it, like a disciplined amount of time per day, just to start writing and see what happens.
Amazing. Oh, well, you have to come back on once you've written it and talk all about it. It sounds brilliant. So given all of that, and I suppose as you've seen a number of different groups or taken other of different groups through your expeditions, to anybody who's out there listening to this and thinks that's something I would absolutely love to do, but they're, like we said, there may be anxieties, or they're not quite sure, or they don't even know how to manage the logistics, quite frankly, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Come talk to me. I'm very and that's I'm actually quite old school. I actually really like good phone conversation, and just give me a call and I'd happily chat with you about it. Secondly, I think if you do have that little burning desire to do it, then try not to be put off by all the excuses that come in, or all the reasons why it's going to be too difficult. And think about the one reason that actually says yes to you. Why should you do it? And really focus on that aspect of it. And then just let that take you a little bit further. And again, I'm here to support anybody on that journey. And even if you don't come with me, just in general, just there's loads of adventures you can do. But just having that, just thinking about the positive aspect of it, and don't let yourself be put off by all the other stuff, because it can become overwhelming, and it just means that you don't do anything and you become very static. So it is about, I can't remember who it says, but it's the doorstep mile. It's that thing where you've got to take that first step. Yeah. And once you're over that, actually it all comes going. And I've had a woman who, she only found out about it less than a month before we were about to go. And she literally just okay, I'm coming, organize this, and suddenly she's there. And that's happened a couple of times where people have just heard it right at the last minute and thought, yeah, doing it. And that's almost easier in a way, because you just get on that momentum and you just run with it. So yeah, run with those sort of ideas. I think it's really important to not let that inner critic or all the other worldly stuff push you down.
Yeah, that's so true. And maybe there is a thing there about, like you said, just signing up last minute and then you haven't got time to talk yourself out of it or find the barriers.
Yeah.
But I think that's such good advice, because it's when you have that little niggling sense of, I really want to do this, and there are always so many reasons why not to do something. So
absolutely. You could put yourself off anything. Even go to Sainsbury's. I don't actually need.
I could definitely put myself off going. That'd probably be easier, actually.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Catherine. So if people want to find out more about either your adventures or you, where do they go to look for you?
My website is the best port of call. It's cathadventure.com. And you can look for me on Facebook, but I'm not very reliable on that. And I do Instagram sometimes too, which is also Cathadventure. I like Instagram. It's just, I just don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, website is good. You can contact me, my phone number, you can email me through there, whatever. So it's easy.
Brilliant. And of course, they can always go and look up your amazing TED Talk as well.
Yeah. And that's on the website as well. So yeah, listen to that, because that gives the idea of, where it came from in a nutshell.
Incredible. Thanks so much, Catherine. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I could have talked
you.
for ages. And yeah, like I said, come back on when you've written the book.
Yes. Might be waiting a while.
That's all right.
Yeah. All
right. Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
So I absolutely love speaking to Catherine, and I left our conversation feeling so inspired and really hoping that her adventures can pick up again really soon. What I wanted to do is just pick up on her point around fear. And I know it's something that I've touched on a few times throughout previous podcasts, but I thought it was so interesting when she talked about, actually, for her, the scariest things that she can think of are things like driving around the M25 or being bombarded by your mobile phone, feeling technology wants a piece of you all the time. And that actually that there was such solace and space for her in the adventures that she does. And that's why it's so important. I think it really turns that whole idea of what is scary or what we are afraid of on our heads in the end. When we're thinking of starting a new adventure, we're thinking of trying something new. Are we more afraid of what might happen during that experience? And, in Catherine's case, probably many things that people will be worried about, whether it's insects or the animals, or whether it's just, can I cope with this? Can I manage this? Will I be okay? Will I be up to the task? Our own fear of failure in a way. But then there's also the bit of us that's actually, maybe we are more afraid. And maybe this is the bit that is the key to motivation. Actually, maybe I'm more afraid of what happens if I don't do this. Yeah, who am I if I don't take that step to extend outside of my comfort zone and see what I'm really capable of? Maybe I'm more afraid that I stay feeling stuck, or that all those opportunities or possibilities in life maybe aren't open to me. And I think for a lot of people, sometimes the drive, or the thing that takes us past that point and enables us to work alongside that fear, is that the fear of what happens if we don't do it is actually more powerful, more worrying than the fear if we do, or the uncertainty of not knowing what happens if we do. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts for this week. As always, please feel free to get in touch. You can find me on Instagram, Resilience at Work. Join us in the Everyday Adventure Club on Facebook. And you can also visit my website, resiliencework.co.uk, to find out more about my work and the sort of adventures that we do. In the meantime, I will see you back here again next week, when I'll have another amazing person to talk to about their everyday adventures. Look forward to speaking to you then. Bye.